Already.
Yeah, that's a good question.
All right, sweet.
Can you hear me if I talk this loudly?
Yeah.
Excellent. Mr. Larson, you ready? First argument is inheritance. The United States houses TWs in Eastern Europe for its allies of Belgium, Belgium, Germany, Netherlands, and Turkey. Some have been delivered by the United States fighters, but others are deployed to the border. More recently, NATO has had some issues with resolving these second arguments. There's no plan to remove TWs now. There was a vote in 2011 where Obama said that we would not take them out and that we would deploy more of them to Eastern Europe. Also, there's an agreement made with NATO that all the allies have to agree, i.e. all 28 nations have to agree that this would happen before we would actually remove them. We would remove the TWs as a plan. The United States federal government should end the forward deployment of all tactical nuclear weapons. And once again, the United States federal government should end all forward deployment of nuclear weapons. So all says that this would be normal means. They would be decommissioned and stored in the United States. The first advantage will be loose nuclear weapons.
Okay, so you say in the inherency that it has to have the agreement of all the NATO allies. Do you also fiat that all the other countries will agree to this? Or how do you do anything in
We don't
your
fiat that, but we say that it would be normal means that we would talk with our allies.
And that they would agree?
I mean,
Like not to have terminal salt.
I mean, it's not like the NATO allies can tell us not to remove can't force us to not remove them.
It's an argument
Isn't that
of
what
why
the
it would
second
happen.
inherency argument?
No, it's that we talk to them about nuclear issues.
Okay,
That's the
I gotta move on. Sorry, the first argument will be uniqueness is loose nuclear weapons. Sorry, the first argument is that Turkish TWs are being sold. The first argument is there's no ability for the United States to move them out of the area until they're still. The second argument is that according to General James John, who was the top NATO commander, they wanted to remove them, but there was strong opposition because it would be very difficult to monitor them. The next argument is that sequestration has caused serious overspread of our launches in that region, which means that there is an increased difficulty in monitoring what goes on with our nuclear assets. Their second argument is that non-state actors want the nuclear weapons. According to Jamestown study, Osama bin Laden suggested the Turkish jihadists attack the United States base in Turkey on February 1st. There was a suicide bomber who attacked an embassy there, which indicates the probability of an attack. And the serious second argument is that security is not good because they could be easily stolen. In April 2011, there was a rocket attack that was planned by an ideological group. In 2011, there were lots of car bombs, and they stole tons of car bombs and maps, which indicated that they had the ability to swipe the weapons from the facility. The next argument is that there's a lot of border violence and refugees from Syria are flooding over the border. This is the reason why the TWs are showing the borders, because that's what the United States base is. If they went away, they wouldn't be on the border anymore. The link is a plan and for deployment of TWs, which first forces secure disposal because we shipped them back. When we did this as a part of START, and we shipped them back, there were no problems, no security threats because we shipped them back in a secure way. There was no possibility of them being stolen. The next argument was this also precludes the possibility for them to be stolen in the future. The removal also increases the security there, and it also increases surveillance over other areas. The third argument is it also removes the security because the reason why all the nuclear weapons are safe now is because there's capacity for them to be stolen. We remove that also makes the ability for Turkey to upgrade its own security because non-state actors wouldn't intervene where Turkey has its own bases that are farther away and also would have better security than the U.S. because they would actually care about the weapons. The first argument under the internal links is the news caused the release war. First argument is Al-Qaeda and their suspects have wanted to get nuclear weapons. Also Hezbollah is housed in Libya has also said that they wanted to sail the acrylic base in Turkey. So it's a place where Al-Qaeda is trying to use bombs and attack and use and as a way to create an opposition surge. The first impact is non-state violence. Two types of threats are the very first is that there would be an attack, a non-state actor attack would kill millions. Only 10 pounds of explosive and 1 stick of fissile material would be able to level the area of Manhattan and cause millions to die. The United States would respond to this according to President Obama. The nuclear terrorism is the single most pressing nuclear threat or national security threat, meaning that we would intervene immediately. The war would be horrible and bloody. We did not learn from our last mistakes because it's seen as the top it would be seen as the top priority, which means nukes would go, which would mean lots of nukes go everywhere, and the United States would not stop until we felt like there was no threat left. The next argument will be Israel launch a preemptive strike first. They would be willing to escalate, especially if they have bad relations with Turkey. They would launch a first strike, which would be really problematic, cause other powers to be drawn in, and the United States willing to cause nuclear weapons to cause extinction because they would kick up enough dust to and also cause radiation to fall out, and probably would be over water, which kills all the biodiversity because it irradiates the plankton and anything else. Next would be proliferation. The first is uniqueness. The proliferation should get the first is uniqueness. The uniqueness is that nuclear weapons are a tool of imperialism and it forces other countries to remain under the United States security umbrella. The first is there's no allied proliferation now. The first is that it redefies the United States deterrence because Germany said that and Poland said that as long as they were under our umbrella, they would not use nuclear deterrence. Second argument is that there is the nuclear weapons law leverage over our allies because it forces them to collapse with us. For example, the United States has threatened to pull out security agreements in a world where they don't do that. So an example of this is that Germany announced they would have deterrence even though, or it wouldn't use deterrence even though it wanted to pursue it. The third argument today that forward deployment equals imperial. It forces the imperial reach of Europe to go everywhere because it forces them to abandon deterrence and the name of cohesion. Also problematic because it forces all the allies under the umbrella and forces the actors to have also forces the United States to expand its powers outward. Oh, sorry, I thought you had a question. The next argument is it also allows the United States to control the Middle East using this arm of imperialism and Orientalist pressure, which is problematic. For example, we use Turkey to deal with Syria, and we've threatened to scale down our security guarantees to them, where they were not cooperative with weapons. The next argument is the planned cost of proliferation. First, the removal of the extended deterrence forces countries to proliferate on their own, which means that there's any security guarantee or umbrella for them. Second argument is that they don't rely on the nuclear umbrella, which means that they get their own technology, which is better off. And safer third argument is it lets U.S. leverage over allies because they don't feel retribution, which means we can have more productive NATO meetings and autonomous decision-making can happen. For example, the Turkish Prime Minister told the United States to mind its own business because we considered doing problematic to Turkey. The first argument is going to be the internal link. First argument is that they all would have access to fissile materials. They also have limited number of long-range missiles. For example, UK and France both have this. Also, there's technology. For example, they could use the technology Eastern Mediterranean for dual-use technology. Turkey began a program in the 1990s but disbanded it, but they could easily ramp this up. The next argument is that nuclear deterrence is key to nuclear democracy and independence. At first, the small countries could stand up. For example, if Pakistan, India, and China all became democracies and better powers because they were able to get nuclear weapons, they're also not beholden to the United States because they would not have to comply with their policy. The impact of this is keeps strong imperialism. The United States controls this in a way that allows individuals who are not seen under the security umbrella to be seen as less human beings and irrational. We stop this mindset. For example, this also NATO's key to stopping deterrence over Russia. Russia's been expansionist and going to Baltic states. This would be really problematic. They threatened to cut off the oil. When they did this in the past, it caused oil to increase 40% and caused a minor gas crisis in the thousands. And not only do we stop the cycles of violence, which these some populations is not being worthy of nuclear weapons, so we also check back against Russia, which certainly would start working because they cut off natural gas. The U.S. has to go in 8 bombs, while also causing them to try to take the Arctic. The U.S. would definitely fight them because it's by our easy. Bombs go off, everybody dies.
Okay, here is going to be the inherency page, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 off, and then case.
Which name was the very first?
The inherency page. Yeah, and I'm just going to put like a lot of solvency arguments on the inherency page, so yeah, you can focus there.
4 off, and then the rest of the case. Is that correct?
Yeah. Is there a lectern or anything right here?
You just use it. Nope. No, we'll break the board here. Sorry. Yeah, this way.
I need you.
All right.
Can I press this button? Is everyone ready? First argument, secure inherency takes out the entirety of your case. You say that agreement with NATO allies is necessary. That is literally verbatim as to what you say in the PMC. It is necessary in order to have the DNWC remove this. Also, a couple of reasons why these NATO allies wouldn't just say yes if they're trying to morph this into a way in which they can consult with these allies. First is all their arguments about why Turkey in the status quo has stopped it from pulling out our reasons why Turkey would not allow this terminal solvency to this. Yeah, like Turkey would stop this at the very least. That means that there's still nuclear weapons. That just means that they fight all the perception links-based stats that I'm wondering. Next is first is turn United States deployment deploy to get the United States has to deploy the military force in order to go and obtain TNWs, and that means that first of all that it causes Russia to freak out and make sure that angers them because they don't understand what the United States is doing with the TNWs. Next is it also ensures that we redeploy them. That's according to the Robertson, former senior Pentagon official, which is an indication that you don't actually pull out of Europe. Or at the very least, if you pull out of Europe, you'll just put them in another place on the globe. Next is no solvency. The plan doesn't the plan just leads to relocation. That's the argument I just made, and this is empirically true. The Christensen National Defense Council said that empirically we've placed them in other places, and 2 bases empirically whenever we pulled out nuclear weapons from 2 bases in Turkey, 1 in Italy, 2 in Germany, we just moved them to another base in the actually the exact same country, but we put them under different controls, which means that you don't solve this nexus. Turn relocation causes miscalculation. This is according to the Strategic for Non-Proliferation Studies, because people don't know where these nuclear weapons are anymore. Look in the status quo, people know that generally the United States has strategic nuclear weapons, and the status quo gets to the bottom. And the 4th argument is there's no assurance of nuclear weapons, means that NATO allies go to increase conventional weapons, and this is more likely empirically. We have had many more conventional wars than nuclear wars. The second one, mutually assured destruction checks back nuclear escalation, and empirically more likely that it is more likely that Russia would, for instance, move into Chechnya or Georgia in order to prove its military dominance that the United States is seen as modernization, which is the argument that we're going to go for. And next, in turn, the United States withdrawal makes French fill in order to fill and boost NATO allies. That means that this collapses NATO. This is uniquely bad because NATO's key in order to make sure that the United States has a high hegemony. And I'll get to the impact turns on the advantage to and explain why hegemony is good. But next, no time frame for any of your impacts. There's literally no brink analysis isolated in the PMC. This is terminal solvency, or this is terminal impact defense, because they have had these nuclear weapons there for freaking ever. There's no brink to how much time we need to have in their next turn. You increase transportation of the nuclear weapons. The only argument you leverage against this is in your advantage 1, and you literally just assert that this would be safe transportation. I call BS. And first of all, our argument is that you cannot ensure that things moving through the globe means that you can't check this back. Next turn, you only store nuclear weapons. These are empirically less guarded, and increases risk of theft, and it also causes nuclear leakage, which leaks into water supplies, destroys the agricultural sector of the United States economy, if that's what you're putting them, or wherever you place them. That causes economic collapse, and better internally than the arguments you're citing to nuclear war, because economic collapse develops in this way. And in a world where economies collapse, that means that they have no incentive to not use nuclear weapons. Next turn, the plan takes out the role of the that's fine. Your question?
Okay, so the plan text says that we would end all forward deployment.
Yeah.
Why would we redeploy them anywhere else?
Because empirically, that's what it says, and you said
Okay.
within normal means.
Wait, durable
Next
fiat?
is the normal means is pure interpretation. It is not. It's durable fiat. Next is the counterclaim. Someone aids the text. The United States federal government should. Oh no, that's fine. No, scratch the counterclaim. Sorry. Next is Japan rearm. This has someone aids because first of all, Japan is not proliferating in the status quo. The Constitution forbids it, someone views the links, first of all, from an hour ago, Ida Torres in the Japan Daily Press of the United States just re-indicated that it has strong alliances with Japan and that will remain committed to these things, and that they literally rekindled the alliance because of a growing threat from China and North Korea in terms of nuclear proliferation. And the argument is the plan flips this back because at the point where the United States is decreasing its nuclear security umbrella, that means that Japan has no incentive not to rearm. Sees the impacts that Japan rearm is super terrible. First of all, moves toward nuclearization means that other countries rearm. That means that there's a high propensity for nuclear weapons. That means that it also collapses mutually assured destruction because people don't know which country has nuclear weapons anymore. And that means that a lot of nuclear weapons exist. An increased propensity for these to be launched. Also an increased propensity for terrorists to attack, which is a scenario that they isolate on case. And I ask you to hold in a second as I collapse the NPTE sparks East Asian prolif and kills the United States and Germany as well. Move on to the Russian relations system, which is the next often someone Asian unique social relations are high instead of first of all, Hegel's pull out of the European being the increased relations for. That's 4 days ago. Second, it is Kerry's Berlin conference. The Russian foreign minister said that at that conference, he said that the United States would give Russia a more substantial role in the United States nuclear policy. Third is according to Ghost, a professor of the United States Naval War College in Moscow, now believes the United States will include the United States in its nuclear policy and specifically in new changes. So what piece of links? First of all, the plan is a slap in the face to Russia and specifically Russian foreign minister because it excludes Russia and acts unilaterally. The second is the plan is perceived by Russia as a smokescreen to justify increased modernization and arms development. That's according to Kozin, Russian internet from the Russian Institute of Strategic Studies, and C is the impacts. First, none of the starts happening in the status quo. This is key to making sure that extremist actors, which they isolate as the most likely scenario for a nuclear weapon, they are able to then get these nuclear weapons because we aren't avoiding these things, and that the plan collapses these discussions because the United States will not know, or Russia will no longer work with the United States, and that this is the internal link to the theft of nukes, best internal link scenario as well, because the Soviet has the old Soviet Russia had a shit ton of nukes, and the one nuke, it's caused by their nuclear analysis here. The next argument is Russian aggression increases, and it also causes an increase in Russian aggression in order to prove that it does not have to rely on diplomacy with the United States. This increases anti-Western sentiment in Ukraine as pro-Russian factions swing toward Russia's caused civil wars, specifically in Ukraine, and we also the Ukraine specifically key because 80% of the Russian oil flows through this, and some European economies are 100% dependent on all Russian oil. This means it causes European economic collapse, probably a stronger internal link to war because of the reasons why resource wars causes lashouts more likely, and the decrease in protection of nuclear weapons as well, which means a stronger internal link to other extremist access to nuclear weapons. Access is necessary. Third is military modernization causes arms races increase the risk of using period room by Russian liquid fuel rockets, and China's reaction to that increases the risk of lashout through conventional and nuclear means. Next is politics. Somebody is engaged bipart. Bipart is happening now in the status quo for a deal for the continuing resolution. The first argument is Obama meeting with lawmakers. Now let's shift from appealing to the people. The second argument is Obama going around the leadership and wooing rank and file Republicans. Third argument is Obama was offering compromises like change seat guidance on Social Security. Fourth argument is Obama is conservative Senator Bob Corker said that Obama is leading in is key cooperation. And B is the links. First of all, the bipart is key. Zachary Keck website, The Diplomat, which is a super conservative website, said on March 6th that a reduction in tactical nuclear weapons will be met with a stiff opposition from the Republicans, and also this shifts focus away from this thing. Someone sees the internal links. First of all, bipart is key to passing a budget or continuing the resolution, avoiding sequestration, and this will immediately cut 750,000 jobs. This causes economic collapse. In the second scenario that we're going, the economic collapse causes resource wars crossed by the announcement already gone on this end. This cuts funding for no, that's fine. Move on to advantage one. First argument is no warrant that these nuclear weapons are going to be sold. Second argument is you can, and like also there's no warrant as to why like these things are being protected in the status quo. Even the Turkey government and the United States government has obviously incentives to protect these things. Next is no nukes are better than a lot of nukes, which yeah, go on to the pro-love good. First argument is the United States, yeah, that's fine, because I mean, I'll do that, so see. Our first argument here is that all of the disavs are reasons why proliferation is bad. We have more specific analysis. Also, you collapse the United States Army, that's key to solving all wars.
All right, the order will be Japanese rearm. Well, actually, sorry, I want to do the case in order, starting with solvency, and then advantage 1, advantage 2. Then Japan rearm, the relats, the SAD, and the politics, the SAD.
I don't need that
Yeah, yes, please. Thank you. Yes. So, it's case in order. Japanese rearm. Relations. Politics.
Oh, sorry. It's Japanese. Wait. Solvency?
Solvency, the advantages in order.
Oh, okay.
Japanese rearm. Relapse. Fix. First on inherency, they say we can't take them out. We can unilaterally take them out. We would just have to consult the point of information to check on this issue. We indicated that the United States would be able to withdraw, and we indicated the normal means would be withdrawn, would be withdrawn, decommissioned. You shouldn't vote on an inherency argument about whether or not the U.S. could be able to withdraw its nuclear weapons that it owns and is deployed in its bases, which means that it obviously has control over those issues. The next argument is they say redeployment. The first argument is durable fiat solves. We say no more forward deployment of nuclear weapons. We would not redeploy them because the plan explicitly bans. The second argument is that our solvency arguments on normal means is that we would withdraw and decommission them to the United States. The third argument is that there have been no other allies that have asked for the redeployment of tactical nuclear weapons. Japan is content with the nuclear umbrella, but I'll talk about that more in the Japanese rearm. To that end, or South Korean allies content with consent deterrence means that there would certainly be no redeployment. The third argument is that redeployment certainly wouldn't cause miscalculation because we announce where our TNWs are deployed. That's why we know where they are instead of me having to be a DoD official to know where it is. Additionally, They say no assurances mean they modernize conventional weapons. We've indicated a couple reasons why they would modernize the nuclear arsenals, and that would cause a much larger deterrent that would be able to allow MAD to check, because their MAD checks arguments all rely on the use of nuclear weapons, which means that only we access this. They say French villain, we've impact turned this at French villain and vertical proliferation would be a good thing for a couple reasons. First, it actually deters Russia. Russia doesn't believe the United States would use nuclear weapons. It said it would believe them if there were European allies that had nuclear weapons. The second argument is that there is no impact to hegemony collapse only extended other than it solves all war. Disagree for a couple of reasons. First, the United States hegemony is only well, actually, I don't want to impact turn hedge. I just want to say that there's just literally not an impact. It's like one sentence about why it solves war. Colin, I see you nod your head. Everyone else probably agrees. Additionally, it certainly doesn't deter conflict, polarity, multipolarity. There would be multipolarity that fills in, something like that. Additionally, they say increased transportation. We have a couple more. It's why transportation would be so unique to say. First, we have empirics on our side. Start at the decommissioning of TWs, and that also takes out the redeployment. Our means could start cuts just cause us to not redeploy them. It causes us to withdraw them and decommission them. The second argument is that those didn't get stolen, and the third argument is that increases media spotlight on the issue means that there is unique propensity for the U.S. military to be able to block that. Additionally, they say it causes leakage. First, that's not unique in status quo. Use nuclear powers increasing every year for the last 20 years. And tonight, second argument is no more to agriculture. It causes economic collapse. Third argument is that the U.S. economy is resilient. It's bounced back from 2006, 2008 crisis, and that was banking sector collapse. Not U.S. agriculture. Agriculture is only a small portion of the economy, and it'll always be able to bounce back because we had the worst droughts this season, and it didn't collapse. The U.S. economy means that there's no impact unique for the turn. Go to the what?
Wait, answer the conventional weapons and build and strike commission.
I already answered that above. Go to the first advantage. They say no more for why they would sell them. That's not our argument. Our argument is that they're housed in really shitty storage places now, and that the terrorists have maps of those places. That's our empiric argument about why the U.S. Department of Defense to seize maps of terrorist cells being able to have this. What?
Were those the only maps that ever terrorists had ever about our nuclear storage facilities?
No, okay, yes. Other people had maps too. That probably means there's a high probability of them being stolen from status quo. Additionally, they say no nix is better. Disagree. Our second advantage is an impact turn to this says that nuclear weapons proliferation is good. Go to the second advantage first. Go back to the first page. They can see this causes massive Middle East war. It causes drawing in the United States means that it becomes tried for resource. We would invade the Middle East and we retaliate with nuclear weapons because Obama's indicated that we would retaliate in kind with nuclear terrorism. Go to the second advantage now. So this advantage goes cold conceded. We increase deterrence means that the Russian dissent doesn't have an impact because European allies having nuclear deterrent would prevent Russia from being able to counterbalance the region. Means they would not invade Ukraine because Ukraine would have its own nuclear weapons program. It's probably a reason why they would not try to fuck with them because they have their own shit. They've also conceived the imperialism impacts a tool. U.S. orientalist policy means you have an ethical obligation to reject that in the first place, but also they've conceded that it causes that it collapses Russian deterrence means that this causes our conflict. That draws major powers competing over resource means that there's a false nuclear war conceded only 8 bombs to keep cost attention go to Japan rearm. Alright. The first argument I want is we don't have TNWs near Japan. The only thing that deters Japanese rearm is our strategic nuclear weapons, which we do not affect. Therefore, Japan would not rearm. Also, Japan has explicit promises in its constitution indicates they would not be able to rearm because they have indicated that they wouldn't pursue this. Additionally, Fukushima has deterred them from pursuing new nuclear posture. Additionally, they say strong alliances are key. We also will say that strategic nuclear weapons are able to solve this back from the overview. Additionally, they say the plan to decrease the nuclear umbrella. Disagree. We don't have any nuclear weapons. That means the link is literally nonsensical. Go to the second dissent. Relations. First, our argument is relations is low now because we passed Magnitsky bill and there's abortion adoption, or there's not abortion, adoption ban from Russia. Russia means that relations are low in the status quo. But the plan would actually increase relations because Russia has called for United States withdrawal of these issues, and the plan would probably spur reciprocal cuts because the Russians have indicated the reason they don't cut their track nuclear weapons arsenal, which is much larger than the United States, because the United States continues to forward deploy its nuclear weapons. Meaning the plan would resolve the link to this disadvantage and would probably spur reciprocal Russian Russian cuts means that it decreases Russian aggression because they have a less unstable nuclear arsenal, probably decrease the likelihood of nuclear terrorism. Additionally, Russian loose nukes are not nearly as likely as Turkish loose nukes for a couple of reasons. First, Russia has a large stockpile and they have lots of armed guards. The second argument is that there's not near any terrorists. All of their nuclear weapons are stored inside of Russia, not in Turkey, which is by the unstable Syria, which is about to boil over from the refugee crisis. That's conceded uniqueness from the other advantage. It wouldn't cause further Russian modernization. They've already indicated that they are not going to modernize their arsenal. They're focusing on conventional issues now. Go to politics. First argument is that uniqueness overwhelms the link. Continuing resolution will inevitably pass. The Republicans know that there is no risk that they would want to risk the government shutdown. They're already perceived as a party of no, and that has cost them the election. They know that they have to start being bipartisan and sack up and do something that's right for the country in the first place. But there's also a couple of numbers that will shadow bipartisanship. First is the gun control debate. So that'll shadow bipartisanship, ensure that the Republicans would never get on board because they have ideological issues on these issues. The second argument is the immigration debate. So debates over border security, legalization of immigration and LGBTQ visa status means that those fight the community contentious. So the third argument is that we recently cut Egyptian aid, and that was a major military aid cut that erupted bipartisanship. The next argument is that there's no link. They cited one article no falsifiability means you fall to which is most likely. The next argument is that NATO allies have called for the removal of TNWs from the country. Means that the Republicans would like the because they like to have U.S. or because they like to have U.S. involvement in NATO. The next argument is winners win. Obama is able to get he's able to regenerate political capital. There's no internal link for a couple of reasons. First, there would be no investor freak out. We shut down the government in 1994, and that didn't cause an economic collapse. The second argument is that you can classify the economy as resilient. The U.S. economy will always bounce back. The third argument is that we wouldn't go to resource wars because we're still able to trade with resources as long as trade ties remain intact. Even if the economy declines, we'd still be able to trade for it. And Russia will be able to China will be able to profit the global economy. 2008 proves that their economy continues to rise even in the face of U.S. economic decline. It means that there's no global resources.
The order, the politics that... Sorry, let me put stuff. Okay. The politics disad, then advantage, the solvency dump, I don't know where you got that flow, wherever you want. Okay. Then advantage 1, advantage 2, then Japan and Russia.
And then Russia?
Yep. Basically the same order, but politics is on top. Where's that timer? Oh, okay.
Not going for politics direction. First, concede the unity overwhelms so that there's no risk of the Republicans going to backlash against themselves. Authors continuing resolutions going to pass because they're not going because they're seen as a party of no means not going to not react against. Second, concede the thumpers like gun control, immigration, and major military ship already killed. That means there's no risk of offense. Even if it's true the winner's going to first down the political capital link turns a bipartisan link turn, but that doesn't matter because there's not any risk of them like it's going to pass the South whenever they can't make it pass more. No risk of offense. Let's go to background first. They inherency argument. It's not really an inherency argument. It's a solvency question. They say, and I quote, you should hold to the PMC because his answer to our point of information is that they talk about them. The answer the PMC gives them, the PMC's words are, all of them must agree on removal. Means if he doesn't give you any reason as to why that would be true, he just says it's normal, means we decommission them basic. That's only a question if you get people to be able to do it. Next, he said his first answer is that we unilaterally take them out, we just consult with them about it. That's not true. They have to agree to this. This is the answer the PMC gives us. Means it's a fundamental shift. If they go for this argument, it's probably abusive. If you don't go for it, it's not a reason to vote on it, but it spikes out of all of our solvency arguments. Means they get to deliver fiat their solvency of it, or it's abusive of fiat. Means you have to hold this question initially. Phil makes the argument the Turkey's not going to let them out because empirically in the past we were able to prevent them from doing so. They make that argument. Probably proves why this argumentation is true, that they have to have their permission to people to do so. I mean, you hold them to a very high threshold for being able to actually get those nuclear weapons out of the country if they are so important to people, especially to Turkey. Next, extent the not going for the redeployment argument. They're able to do it, but if you haven't solved that initially. But next, I am going for the French fill-in argument. That's the term that the U.S. withdrawal leads to French fill-in. First argument said that's good because the French fill-in would be better because it would actually deter Russia. I call one BS. The French are empirically better at surrendering at wars than they are at fighting them. The second argument is that France does not have nearly enough nuclear weapons to deter against Russia because they have, I think it's less than 100, maybe 200, not nearly as many as the United States has, even if that's fewer than Russia. Only a risk that the United States would be able to deter against that. Third is that they're not able to deter against Russia by themselves because Russia could just bounce against everybody else. Is the reason why NATO's key. If our arguments they collapse, NATO, which they have conceded, is true, then the United States is the key linchpin in their arguments. The United States is literally the chair, and we get to dictate whatever happens with NATO. I mean, so it doesn't mean we get to force them around. Don't let them make this into a sophistry argument because their arguments that everyone has to agree. Arguments that we are the leader. Excuse me, we don't get to force them around. We are the leadership, though, and we are seen as the linchpin to the alliance, which means the United States strategic alliances and basing rights are key to those. Which is the reason why the weapons are there in the first place.
They make the argument in the world of the plan the prolif, Russia would not perceive that as like legitimate.
Also, in the world of the plan, Russia would not perceive proliferation as legitimate. Why is that true?
Like they say that on their advantage too.
Oh, they say that on their advantage too. Russia wouldn't perceive that as legitimate, which
Yeah, like
means they don't solve this
proliferation.
because other kinds of proliferation
That's the reason why
would be the reason why that's why proliferation is good.
Right, like that's the argument they make.
Yeah, that's the thesis of their advantage to
Which
argument.
means Russia would not consider.
Which means Russia
French
wouldn't
to be
consider
there.
the French to determine. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
fine.
that wouldn't deter. Yeah.
And that's fine. Advantage one. First argument for makes the way, then the
No,
yellow.
that can extend, there's no time frame for the impacts.
Oh, I thought that was on that thing. Oh, sorry, okay. Yeah, that's right. That's the argument I'm extending anyway. That's the seventh argument on the solvency page. There's no time frame, so you can ask him in the MG. I give him a point of information. What's the time frame of this? He says that the maps exist now, which means they probably should have already done it, right? When is that going to happen? When are they going to steal nuclear weapons? They don't give you a time frame to when that is true. Means for our analysis, why they trigger the links immediately means we're running a question of time frame. And since we're all essentially going for the same impacts, it means we access the impacts faster. So damning contention for them. Don't let them give you some BS arguments to when they're going to do it. Now they're getting an inevitability claim means you don't get to access or time frame arguments. They just get to go for probability. I say it's a low probability because we are empirically we're able to stop them from getting these. Like the plan proves that we are able to arrest them. Like we got these car bombs, the authorities were able to catch them. And there's no risk of these things getting stolen either. Next is loose nukes advantage. First, actually, that's the argument I just make now. That's the you cross apply this here. There's no risk of them getting stolen. Also, there's no time frame to that. Advantage two. The disad serves a straight turn to this, so go there now. Again, rearm. First is that he says no tactical nuclear weapons to do near Japan because it's about a strategic units out there. That's conflicts with the argument Higgs lower down about it. First, the argument I want here is that the strategic nuclear umbrella and extended deterrence is the key to that. That plan sends a signal that's said. Also, he concedes a unique argument. It's also the link argument that says from 1 hour ago, Ida Jones in the Japanese Daily Press said that the United States alliance would be rekindling with Japan right now because they're afraid of threats like China, who was disputing with them over these rights to drill in South China Sea. Also, the Senkaku Daily Alliance, who's also a nuclear power, and North Korea, who's threatening to bomb South Korea, and they've also provoked the armistice is also nuclear armed powers. The reason why the United States extended deterrence is key because it sends a perception to everyone else. If their advantage two thesis is correct, we send a perception that we are okay with other countries proliferating. It's proper reason that Japan would freak out. That's uniquely bad because we say proliferation is bad because even if they claim that vertical proliferation is good, that's not the argument they're making. They're making arguments about horizontal proliferation, but those are still bad because those arms races uniquely stabilizing because the warrant they concede on the, well, actually I'll answer the impact level later. First, the next is the Japan Constitution. First is that's indicative of the status quo. The reason they leave that in the Constitution is because they don't feel any need to change because the United States security guarantee, the plan changes that because now there's no longer, there's at least a smaller guarantee from the United States sends a signal they might even consider doing this. 30 says Fukushima 1. That's not true. First, they're already considering this. The Prime Minister said, the Prime Minister of Japan also has said that he's considering arming against this. Additionally, they can see the RNL, our unique post states from several months ago. Yes, there are nuclear accidents that happen. That's not a question of whether or not it's worse to suffer a nuclear accident from a civilian project or get bombed by North Korea. They probably fear that more as a reason why they fear those strategic threats as a reason to rearm. Second, next is they say strategic nuclear weapons solve. I say you said perception is that they don't perceive those things if your advantage to true. Next, he says there's no nuclear weapons here, then that's the same argument. Next, then the impact level here. This seems to loose nuclear weapons. Also, these proliferation issues which collapse mutually assured destruction. They can see this argument that nobody knows who has nuclear weapons means it's no longer mutually assured destruction because nobody knows who's actually got them anymore because there's no, unlike with Russia, there's no monitoring mechanism, which means we don't know who's actually proliferating, but they know there's a propensity for people to do that. Probably increases the risk of them striking out, lashing out against countries because they think they might be able to do that before they get nuclear weapons. Means they get them before it actually takes place, even if it actually does it to some means that increases the propensity for nuclear wars to escalate. That leads to extinction. Additionally, they can see the NPTE collapse argument is why that it's also a bad thing allows rogue states like Iran and North Korea to increase the nuclear weapons. And the reason why that increases nuclear modernization, which is uniquely bad. Next one to the Russian relations is that first they say your relations alone now because of the Magnitsky Bill and the adoption ban. They are conceding our uniqueness arguments to why our answer is better. First, the confirmation he's met with Russia right now and his specific diplomatic engagement with Russia and the intent he has to working with them on these issues. Are you prefer specific analysis on these uniqueness questions issues? They can see the Kerry says he's going to give Russia a role and these nuclear modernization, nuclear armament questions. Also, the Gulf said that Moscow is going to include the United States. They can see the analysis on this key issue that we have to work together with them. That's why nuclear modernization and disarmament is key, because they can see the length of the plan is unilateral to slap in the face to Russia as to why this at least means that we no longer care about their opinion on this. We believe that we only ones who know how to do this properly. We don't want to cooperate with them. After we've already set a precedent empirically with strategic arms reduction treaties, why the plan is uniquely bad because it's a reversal. That second, they can see that it looks like a smoke screen for a nuclear modernization, which means that the United States gives them an increased incentive to modernize it, so they can see the argument that Russia, or actually that's why next they say plan increases relations because Russia wants these arguments. Yes, that is our uniquest claim and our link claim that they want us to work together with them. The plan unilaterally does that, which is why it's bad. Next he says that it increases the ship of cuts. That's probably only true in a world in which we're cooperating with them. Because by all my analysis above here, additionally that's right. Also, he says no impact because there are armed guards. The first argument is that the non-nuclear means they have to be able to disarm to dearm them safely. That's why the supervision and cooperation with the United States can do that because they're not safe. Otherwise, they say armed guards. Those armed guards only happen to non-nuclears in place. They can see that analysis. The plane collapse discussion with them. That means there is an increased propensity for theft. Also, if all of your arguments are true about the likelihood of them being stolen, that's only more likely in a world in which Russia's not cooperating with us. Means we get a faster and chilling to our impacts. Additionally, to Russian aggression, they say Ukraine, they wouldn't attack Ukraine because of mad, but that probably leads that means there's a window for them to attack Ukraine before they actually get nuclear weapons, which is the reason why Advantage 2 doesn't solve for this.
Alright. So it's going to be overview, then solvency, and then so overview, solvency, and then the Russia disad, then overview K is like a solvency, advantage 1, Russia disad, prolif, advantage / Japan Iran. Okay.
You said it one more time.
Yeah, so it's solvency K,
Okay.
advantage 1.
Okay.
Russian relations disad, your prolif good arguments, and like the Japan Iran stuff. Super easy ballot for Loyola at the point that they're already conceding the argument that first of all their plan can't even happen because you have to agree. You have to have all of NATO allies agree with you in order to have these things actually happen. Second of all, they are conceding that there's no bring to any of their scenarios on case because all of these maps and things like that are already existing in the status quo, and that proves that either the uniqueness is false because it isn't happening, the scenario hasn't happened yet, or there is zero time frame before this because it will just never happen. There's no bring analysis on case, which means that you prefer the disads, and the reasons why they are changed of the status quo would be uniquely worse. So go on to the inherency, extend the argument that indicates that they make that the agreement with NATO is key. That's a reason why they have no advantage of case. Their questions do not check this back. Their questions indicated that you actually have to have entirety of NATO agreement.
Also, it's empirically true.
Also, it's empirically true, and they do not respond to the argument that Turkey actually said that they do not want the United States to take out of this. Next is on the this is I'm not taking questions. Go on to the solvency case. I do want to extend the, first of all, French prolif is, first of all, not going to deter Russia because Russia doesn't consider these things to be legitimate. That's the argument that they make on their advantage 2 and that my partner cross applies here. Second of all, I want the no time frame argument that is either on this page or on the advantage 1 that indicates that there is no impetus for these impacts to happen because all of these, we've had nukes in Turkey forever. We've had nukes in these places forever. There is no impetus for these things, which means that the only risk of any impact at the end of this debate is whether or not you change the status quo, because we know that right now these things aren't happening, like aren't being stolen, aren't being detonated, which means there's no impact to the case. Yeah, on advantage one, like, I just want to make sure that you know, obviously, that that means that there's no link to their scenario, and I extend it here as well. Russian relations. Overview of the Russian relations, first of all, our uniqueness is more recent than theirs and subsumes theirs. Our analysis about Hegel's pullout of European BND and their analysis about the Magnitsky adoption and how the United States and Russian relations have empirically been bad in the past are all way post-dated. Hegel wasn't even the Secretary of Defense whenever their arguments of what we're having. That means we prefer our analysis, first of all, recency, second of all, because it's actually coming from credible sources as well, and that they have literally conceded the warrants. First of all, the argument that Hegel pulled out of European BND increased relations, that's 4 days ago. The second argument is as well that Kerry's Berlin Conference and gave the foreign minister that the United States would give Russia more substantial United States nuclear policy, and the third argument that Moscow believes that the U.S. would consult Russia in the status quo because they're expecting that right now. And they can see both the linked arguments. The plan is a slap in the face specifically to the Russian foreign minister because it excludes Russia. The second argument, the plan is perceived by Russia as a smokescreen to justify increased weaponization and increased modernization on the part of the United States according to Cozen, and they don't interrogate any of these questions at all. That means we have a clean scenario straight to non-Luger restart. This is a, first of all, an argument that turns case, that they can see that, first of all, it does turn the case, which means we have 100% risk of that. Second of all, non-Luger is key in order to prevent extremist acquisition of these nuclear weapons. We say that this is an empirically better scenario because Soviet nuclear weapons, there are more of them, and that means that and there are less guarded. All their arguments are unresponsive. There are reasons why in the status quo in which we have non-Luger restart, that means that the guards will be able to check them back. But I want this argument clearly extended because it's just literally not responded to in a functional way. And also with the argument that Russian aggression increases anti-Western sentiment in Ukraine, which causes an economic collapse. And do you have a timer?
Yep, 33.
Okay, that's fine. Go on to the pro-live good stuff. Extend the uniqueness that Japan is proliferating in the status quo. Their arguments are only no link arguments on how the United States attacking nuclear weapons don't affect Japan. Extend, first of all, the link that the United States just reassured Japan in the status quo, and that specifically the United States nuclear umbrella. That is key. They do not have an argument as to why strategic nuclear weapons do not function under this, which is the reason why you give us leeway on this link, and also extend the impact that Japan rearm that causes a collapsing NPTE, and that this causes massive proliferation, increases the propensity for the use of nuclear weapons, which is an impact turned to their advantage too. Oh, right. Sorry, it's the same time. They just
Right.
I did made this because they just buy the same titles and then they just put their own labels on it. That's funny.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
The order will be an overview, then the solvency page, then loose snoops, so advantage 1, advantage 2, and yes. Russia than Japan. Sorry. Absolutely. Overview. Solvency page. Advantage 1, advantage 2, then Russia, then Japan. Everybody ready? Ready? Dora the Explorer encapsulated this debate with their saying swiper, no swiping, they're never able to steal the nuclear weapons in a world where they are not on the border, where they are not unsafe, probably resolves all the concerns, also proliferation is an impact turn to all this, because it would probably be very good because there's lots of nuclear weapons and it isn't an advantage to have them. Okay. Also, we saw the impact to Russia because NATO expands, nobody freaks out because the French are credible to use nuclear weapons because they have not had them, they have conceded that argument. Yes, I know. It's not just the French, it's everybody else who would proliferate. I'll get to that more specifically, the advantage. Also, the Japan disad, we impact turned that. So it is good that they proliferate. Alright, on solvency. Let's be reasonable. Look at the shell. Yes, they do have to consult NATO now. We change that. At worst, we take back the weapons, which is not a big shocker because we've done that in START and there were no problems. Nobody stole them.
Point of order. The argument that their plan makes it so that they no longer have to consult NATO allies probably should have been clarified at some point in this debate, other than now.
I think
I think we should have like we would have always. Yeah, sorry.
Don't have time for arguments, answer.
Well, what was the argument you just made again?
That we could remove our own weapons.
Yeah, I think that I made that pretty explicit in the MG that we could remove our own weapons if we wanted to because we own them and they're on our AFBs.
Also, of course, we have an argument saying that consultation is normal means. I'm sure that is under.
And they also consider arguments like communication. It's under consideration.
Yes. Let us proceed. Also, they've conceded arguments that Germany and Turkey would like it. The reason why they're not saying yes now is because they are afraid of the United States imperialism. That is advantage one. Too bad you conceded it. The next argument is that you make a lot of arguments about how there's not a break-on case, but try no break on any of the dissats. Our argument's very simple from the get-go. You have conceded to turns on assaults phase very first is that French proliferation would be good because it would mean that we'd have a credible deterrence against Russia. You've also conceded the argument that START caused withdrawal weapons, which means that this would be safe. Your arguments about the maps happening are inevitable. Look, our argument is that yes, stealing the TNWs are inevitable. The ones that will be stolen are in Turkey because their weapon systems are a lot worse. You're on the border there, right? By Syria. Russia has things like guards and has the weapons in the middle of the country. Probably means none of these proliferation scenarios are going to happen. Do you anything else on solvency?
And the fact that we force reciprocal cuts with Russia
Yeah,
means
yeah.
that they decrease.
Also, the big, huge turn they're missing, reciprocal cuts, means that they also scale down their arsenal, which decreases the likelihood of things being stolen because they too are decommissioning. STAR indicates that they have the ability to do that. On loose nukes, we serve as an impact turn to all of your arguments. We say that they're put in a bad place, but you do not articulate any of these arguments. Our argument is that they are being forward deployed to the border, which is problematic because it means that they can be easily stolen. You have conceded the argument that it only takes 10 pounds of explosives to blow up the area of Manhattan. This is a conceded impact scenario. This is extinction, people, because Obama said that this is the single most important national security threat. Means we go to war over this. The time frame on this is now. The second that we get blown up is the second that this happens. If it is inevitable, it means that we are just waxing you on time frame, we are waxing you on probability, and we are waxing you on magnitude, because guess what? When the United States' #1 probability is to blow things up, we do it. Do you need anything else, Andy? Okay, next argument will be on proliferation. Look, this is an impact turn to Japan. You have conceded it. The reason why proliferation is good is because it deters Russia. You are missing the boat on this scenario. We said the Germans want to proliferate, but they aren't now because they're afraid of what the United States would do. You have conceded the link analysis that shows that proliferation is good because it disincentivizes countries using weapons to oppress other countries. You have also conceded the argument that NATO gets more leverage because, one, they do not fear retribution, and two, they have a better ability to defend themselves when they can focus on actual issues rather than security agreements. They also have limited range weapons. The UK and France will have them, which means that they can deter countries like Russia. That is the impact. Which Russia gets deterred. The only situation in which it doesn't get deterred is when NATO looks weak. We make NATO look strong. One, because NATO allies get proliferation, but second, we also are more cohesive because the United States isn't bullying them. This is a second conceded extinction level scenario because they will cut off the gas. This is a try or die scenario, not the neo type we talk about from the Ukraine because Russia. Okay, the only way that situation happens is if Russia is emboldened to expand. We preclude that impact by stopping them from expanding in the first place. Andy, is that sufficient? All right, Russia. No, we deter them. They will have reciprocal cuts. Offense piece number 1 for you to extend, that they also will cut down their weapons.
Why?
They would do this because this is what's happening in START, right? The reason why they're not scaling back is because they say the United States tactical weapons are the reasons why they happen. We remove the impetus, then they start scaling them back. Andy, is that what you wanted?
More.
Now, they start to scale this back because it looks like the reciprocal cuts. This is what's happening in START. They waited for us to do it, and then they moved it. You go hard for the smokescreen argument. No, the reason why they're not doing this now, what?
The argument that, sorry buddy.
It's okay.
The argument that the United States did the nuclear cuts first, and then Russia did it, and that was proven by START is, well, first of all, that's just not true. But second of all, it's a new argument. It's like a new justification for why Russia would then follow the United States, and I think like that. Yeah, that's it.
I mean, our argument from the get-go is that reciprocal cuts happen, and that the reason why they're not happening is because the United States has tactical nuclear weapons. There's not a response to this argument. We are studying.
For your consideration.
Okay, moving on. All we need to win is that they would scale back tactical nuclear weapons because they perceive the United States as a threat. When this goes away, then proliferation happens. They don't have to scale this back. Also, they conceded the argument that Turkey will boil over. You do not have enough game on this position. That means that there is no there isn't any modernization on Japan. The only argument that we need is a double one. The first argument is that they wouldn't proliferate because we have strategic nuclear weapons that they are absolutely happy with. Even if it's true that your analysis from an hour ago matters, the impact to that is proliferation. We isolate that as being something good. So there is not an impact to this position either. extended deterrence solves for this. All of your arguments about the NPT do not interact because we still have things there. At worst, it means that we reduce our arm of imperialism, which, let us not forget that Andy said you have an ethical obligation to reject, probably means that it's a very clean ballot for us when there's not an impact to Russia, there is not an impact to Japan. They have conceded that the only way that we deter Russia is a strong NATO, and that proliferation will be better for everybody because it stops imperialism. Super clear win for Whitman.